Okay, good morning, everybody. How are you? Good morning, good morning. How's everybody feeling? Feeling good? Good. Wow, it's actually a really good response for the morning here in San Francisco. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. See if I can adjust this up. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining DeployCon. DeployCon is a half-day summit that we decided to put on a few months ago as Predibase, mostly as we started to notice a lot of our customers were going through the journey of what heavy production model serving was looking like. And we wanted to put on a summit where all of you would have a chance to be able to hear from some of the leading minds in AI and be able to actually understand a little bit of what's happening with the generative deployments. So the first thing I want to do is thank you all for coming out to the conference. And also, if we can give a preemptive, you're going to be applauding a lot today, but if we can give it a preemptive round of applause for an amazing set of speakers. We have everyone from founders of public companies to leading folks from tech companies like Pinterest, Tinder, DoorDash, companies like NVIDIA, Converse Now, AWS, and Meta are going to be joining us on a panel, all in the next 2.5 hours or so of really packed content. So there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to be talking through, and I just want to appreciate everyone for making it out here this morning and being able to really be a part of this conference, and of course to our speakers who both put together content to be a part of this, and then are also going to be able to hopefully take a number of your questions as well. We have over 1,000 people that have registered to both be able to join us live, and if we say hello to the live stream too, thank you very much for tuning in. And it's going to be a really good audience. I just want to get a quick poll from the room. Who here today works on, as part of their job, generative AI applications, either in production or in like a pilot and prototyping stage? If you could raise your hands. Okay, so just about everybody, I would say, which means we did the right thing. And then who here is already in production with a generative AI application? Wow, this is amazing. By the way, this answer would not have been the same in 2023, so really good to see. And then the last question I'll ask is, who here has started either experimenting with or actively using open source models, which will also be a theme for us at DeployCon? Amazing. Just take a look around. That is, I think, an incredible response, and really, I think, talks about kind of the maturity of the industry that we've seen. So I want to give a brief introduction to everything that we're going to be talking about here at DeployCon. So I hope you'll bear with me through my keynote before we get to some of the most exciting pieces, which is really hearing from the folks in industry. Really brief introduction to Predibase. We look at our mission, kind of what we focus in on day in day, is to help customers get from that point where they have an idea or a concept, a prototype, and they're really looking to be able to get into production. We want to be the fastest way for any organization to be able to build production AI. Our origins actually started off back when AI was deep learning, and deep learning was the newest thing. My co-founders and I were authors of projects like Rubrik and Horovod, which helped engineering teams build deep learning models all the way back in 2018 and 2019. And in the generative AI era, we've continued to be able to give back to the open source community with our open source inference framework called Lorax, which I believe you'll be hearing a little bit more about later today too. If you just think about Predibase as, in two terms, the two terms I think about is post-training, so help you customize your models, and then inference, help you serve and deploy those models. And we've candidly been known as a fine-tuning and training shop for a long time, but we've made heavy investments in our inference and serving stack, which is why we've decided to name this conference itself DeployCon, and really welcome everybody to talk about the key issues that go into the heart of deploying generative AI in production. Today is also a very special day in a lot of ways. So we have been planning this conference for months, but I also wanted to actually make a big announcement that as of this morning, we just have some exciting news to share too, which is that we've entered into an agreement, are really excited to be joining forces with Rubrik, a leading world-class data security and governance company that has built an incredible foundation across a number of different enterprise customers in terms of the underlying data assets that they have, and then the security, permissioning, and posturing layer on top. Together, our vision is actually going to be able to continue to accelerate what Predibase has always looked to do, which is help you get more value out of your generative AI applications by unlocking the unique access that you have in customer proprietary data. So our goal is to be able to go ahead and build a generative AI stack and modeling layer on top of the secure data lake that is intrinsic to Rubrik, and be able to continue to expand a lot of the work that we're being able to do. So it's a really kind of exciting day. If you see a number, raise your hand if you're on the Predibase team overall. The Predibase team probably has gotten minimal sleep over the last 24 hours as we have been kind of working and sprinting a large part of this. And raise your hand if you're here with the Rubrik team as well, who likewise have been kind of incredible partners for us, throughout this journey. And just at the beginning of the keynote, I wanted to invite Arvind, one of the co-founders and CTO of Rubrik as well, to be able to just say a few words about where this kind of came from and why we're excited about being able to work together.
First of all, very excited to join forces with Predibase here, and we've been talking to Predibase for a few months, and the more we talked with them, we realized that there was a lot of synergies that we could really build a platform to enable folks to really get value from their AI applications. I'll just spend a few minutes. I know you're not here to hear about Rubrik, but I'll just give a very quick overview for folks who may not know. Sometimes pictures say it better than words. A few pictures in our journey from day one, where 4 of us were trying to figure out what this company will do, to some early both engineering and sales team pictures. A lot of the business in the early days was on a ping pong table, to finally becoming like a public company in our 10th year last year. So we are about 11 years old as a company. And fundamentally, when we started off, we really started with the data protection market. What we saw was a very large but underserved market. We would talk to customers and we would say, do you trust that you can recover your data if anything bad happens? And they were like, I don't know, maybe it will. All I know is I have some backups. So we said, what if we were to reimagine this? And a lot of these solutions were built for the leave alone cloud, they were built for the pre-virtualization era. So we actually went about building a new stack where, what if we reimagine this and really built a platform that brought data and metadata together, where we have full understanding of the data, but also all the metadata around it, what applications, users, and so on. And what that allowed us to do, and we built this in a complete single stack of software, that on top of that, what that allowed us to do was really build a data threat engine where, as we went through this journey, we realized that the biggest threat to data was no longer natural disasters or human error. Cyber attacks were the biggest threat. And so we built a platform that really was focused on how to provide cyber resilience and resilience from cyber attacks. And from an overall platform perspective, what we had to do over the last 11 years was really, first of all, build a unified stack all the way from UI down to a file system that captures all the data and metadata. We had to support tons of applications across enterprise data center, cloud applications, as well as SaaS applications. So we had to build like a common data representation where we could very easily integrate more and more applications based on the various business applications that our customers had. And because we had built this new stack with data and metadata together, we were actually able to build a data threat engine, on top of that build some security apps where, for example, as we are backing up data, we could very quickly talk about, hey, is there a potential ransomware attack based on anomalies in data change rates? We could look for sensitive data that was maybe overexposed to a lot of people, like credit card information exposed to 1,000 people or to the public, as well as understand threats. As we brought in the data, we could scan for malware. And even since we had built a whole time series and history of data, we could actually, even with new threats, we can go back in time and tell people where maybe that particular threat originated in their systems. And over the last, as we started as selling to mostly data center workloads, virtualization, databases, file systems, but as our customers evolved into the cloud, we also evolved into a SaaS product where now today all our customers really access our platform through a SaaS portal, and this is a transformation we did over the last 2 to 3 years to get our customers on board. And fundamentally, this is where we see our product portfolio today, which is our core product, of course, data protection across enterprise cloud and SaaS. And then we have products that do data security. By what we mean is both data security posture as well as resilience for identity systems, both recovering identity systems as well as understanding threats and inadvertent privilege escalations and so on, really provide visibility across data and identity in a single platform. And this is actually a big, if you think of cyber attacks today, identity is the biggest attack vector, and we are building a product that's bridging the gap between identity and data there. And then the third pillar, which was very new, was really around, even before talking to Predibase, we had started exploring, given that we have all the enterprise data on a single platform, we understand the full nature of those applications as well as all the security information, can we actually provide a platform that enables customers to build AI applications in a secure manner? And that's where we announced a product around this called Rubrik Annapurna. We started talking to customers, and what we realized, and this is actually a Gartner quote, that more than 50% of GenAI pilots never make it to production. And as we dug in further, I think there were kind of two categories of issues we see. One is that people struggle with quality, model accuracy, and so on. That's the first thing. 80%, 70% is not good enough for enterprise. You need to get a 90 to 90%, 95% to be able to roll it to production. And then, of course, cost and latency are another factor because people want low latency and relatively low-cost solutions. And then we also heard concerns from the security teams around sensitive data leakage and overexposed data access, and people are worried that what if people suddenly see stuff they should not? And this was a big concern. And the product we announced was more on the right-hand side. We were focused on that because that was kind of what we had built on our platform. But we realized that what we see in terms of quality, cost, and latency, but also here are now problems we needed to solve. And that's when we started talking to Predibase, and what we realized was they had built a pretty impressive platform which is truly addressing these very specific concerns. And that's why we said, what if we were to combine forces and really build an end-to-end platform that can help customers go from pilot to production in a very short period of time. And that's what prompted us to have conversations with the Predibase team and really join forces. We are very excited and bring these platforms together and hopefully provide value to our customers in terms of being able to bring your AI applications to production as quickly as possible.
I want to echo the sentiment from Arvind, which is really that as we got a chance to know each other, I feel like our mutual excitement probably grew with each subsequent meeting. And a couple of things that I just wanted to briefly note on this. One of them is I do actually think it's a very natural synergy that we'll have between kind of the data security posture and then also the model and generative AI layer. But also just on a interpersonal level, the Rubrik team is a phenomenal team that has built one of the few companies that has built a company that actually has rung the bell last year, and congratulations on being able to go public across that, and still maintain a large part of the founder mentality and startup scrappiness in terms of figuring out and being ambitious for the next new direction. So really excited to be able to work with the Rubrik team and kind of talk through the rest of the agenda that we have today, which is fully focused on how we're thinking about generative AI in production. So the first thing that I wanted to just be able to double click on was one of the quotes that Arvind mentioned, which was, on average, more than half of AI projects never make it into production. It takes, many, many months, multiple quarters before they're ready to go from prototype to production. To us, this is probably the narrative that breaks our hearts in a lot of ways, because it means that folks like a lot of yourselves who are the builders are spending months looking to be able to get access inside of an organization, building, prototyping, iterating, probably doing internal review meetings, and then the actual project does not see the light of day. From our experience, there's a few different reasons for why this ends up happening, and Arvind gave kind of a high-level overview towards them. We've seen issues in security, like what I would actually call in bucket one, security and ownership, I'd just call capital T trust. Which is, do you actually believe in these models' ability to go ahead and operate in a governed way and not leak data externally towards the applications that you might be worried about? The second issue that we see frequently is around model quality. Last year at our summer conference, one of our customers, Checker, did a great talk where they talked a little bit about how their first few model iterations were at about 70 to low 80% accurate, but that's just not good enough for their core business. And so they needed to get to 95% plus in order to be able to actually deploy into production. And this tends to be the second key issue. The third and the fourth are ones that I think we'll actually be hearing also a fair amount with later today, so I won't steal anyone's thunder. But speed and throughput also are key and top of mind as you actually deploy models into production, because GenAI, for a lot of agentic applications, needs to feel natural and low latency. And for TCO, for your total cost of ownership, you need to make sure you're getting the most out of any individual GPU, the expensive server that you're essentially running this on. So those have been like the key challenges that we've seen. And along with the key challenges, I want to talk a little bit about what are the main trends that we've kind of actually paired with those. The first trend, I asked at the very beginning of this, who here has experimented with open source AI? And a little more than half the room actually raised their hand, which I think is just going to underscore the first trend that I want to be able to go talk through, which is in 2023, we had the birth of really general purpose frontier large language models. And we were incredibly excited about this technology because in some ways, I think it hit our mission of democratizing deep learning better than anything we had even been doing at the time. It really put models via API access in front of any engineer and builder. But what we've seen is those models have been great for rapid experimentation. You can build that prototype very quickly. But when you start thinking about prod, you're going to start to run into issues around what does this reliability actually look at scale? Is this going to be very costly and expensive, especially if I'm using one of the most expensive frontier models today? And then what's the control you have over the latency and the actual throughput that you're getting out of this application? As a result, the general trend we've seen is a rise towards more open source models. In 2023, when I talked about the fact that this future was going to happen, somebody at the dinner came up to me afterwards and said, Dev, I want to believe you that open source models are going to actually pick up and take off, but they're just not there yet. And I don't blame that person for saying that. In 2023, we were talking about GPT-J. Who here remembers GPT-J? Wasn't a great model. But today, in 2025, we have a number of frontier open source models that are punching far above their weight class, both in terms of efficiency, but also at frontier level performance. And a huge thank you to, I know we have representatives from the Meta team for their contributions to the open source with the Llama ecosystem, as well as a number of the other open source contributions we've seen in heavily popular models like Qwen and DeepSeek and others like inside of our platform. And so the first general trend is, I think that a few years ago there was a question of is there going to be a single model to rule them all? Is at the time GPT 3.5 or GPT 4 going to be the model? And I think what we've actually seen is that purpose-built open source models are actually becoming a preferred path as people deploy into high volume production applications. Not to say that people aren't also doing GPT 3 or 4 or these large language models, but there is really, I think, a growth in both opportunities. The second thing that I think we've noticed a lot in terms of a trend is the rise of post-training as people get more serious about production. And one of the common post-training techniques that we'll refer to oftentimes is fine-tuning. But this is really addressing that bridge and that gap that we talked about earlier of oftentimes for an enterprise application, 70% is just not good enough. And so we actually, if you want to think about one of the things that put Predibase on the map as a company and one thing we're incredibly proud of, last year we introduced something that we called LoRaLand. We're not the best at naming things, but we called it LoRaLand, and then eventually the fine-tuning index. And what we did is we actually benchmarked across 30 different data sets and tasks. We benchmarked a number of different open source models, and we found that over the vast majority of those tasks, fine-tuned small models were outperforming large prompt-engineered GPT-4. And this, I think, was kind of an indication and evidence towards a trend that we all knew to be true for a while, which was when you tailor models towards your data, you get much better performance than if you were to use a generic model out of the box. The last trend that I want to talk a little bit about, and I think I'm looking forward to folks speaking about directly in practice, is the rise of agentic AI. Agentic AI has been a very popular word and phrase, I think, that people have used over the last year. I want to provide my definition for what I view as agentic AI, and that tends to have three key properties. The first is that agentic AI is doing work on behalf of the user. So it's more than just better search. It's actually usually taking some action, which pairs it with number two, which is agentic AI systems typically have a tool or function calling system along with them. And then the third, which is that agent systems typically chain multiple LLM calls together. As people start to, I'd say, graduate from an initial ChatGPT discovery of search into actually workflow automation, delivering the core value of AI, I think the rise of agents is becoming extremely prescient. And one of the things that we see consistently with our customers are this actually increases the need for purpose-built models. Because if you have something, let's say, even 80 or 90% accurate, compounding that over multiple subsequent chains in a model call means your agent system becomes really brittle. And if anyone has played around with some of these early versions of the agent systems, you do know that the brittleness is one of the things that ends up kind of killing the overall end user experience. So that's really why we have started our company. Our mission is to be able to accelerate those key trends that we really see with kind of the core technology that we think is going to unlock it. And when I often describe it, I really think about us as being able to do two things well. One of them is model training and post-training and fine-tuning. The second is serving and deployment. On the model training side, we support everything from supervised fine-tuning to continued pre-training and reinforcement fine-tuning. It's always a little cringy to see yourself do a 2-minute talk on a video, but we have tried to lead the industry in post-training, from everything with our reinforcement fine-tuning launch, which we viewed as the first end-to-end platform for reinforcement fine-tuning we put out in March, all the way to all the research that we've put out in the open source community. This includes things like our fine-tuning index and our technical report, which is often referenced across analysts as a way to be able to benchmark which models are actually performing the best for different tasks, as well as the things that I'm really happy to see folks in our community, including my co-founder and CTO Travis and Arnav, who's a machine learning engineering lead on our team, have been able to do with companies like and projects like deep learning AI to just start to put more educational material on how to be able to use these courses on. And I'm actually really proud to share that just today we got a note that over 10,000 people have registered for the reinforcement fine-tuning course on deep learning AI. There's been over 15,000 models trained as well. So you all are definitely running up the credits on our end, but please keep it up because hopefully soon Rubrik will be backing us on that too. We pair this post-training capability with our highly optimized inference stack. AI has changed the way that models have been developed. Our team has been building in machine learning for well over a decade, and it used to be that you trained a model and then you deployed it. Interestingly enough, AI has actually flipped that script oftentimes. You'll oftentimes deploy a model, prompt it, see where it does well, doesn't do well, and then you'll figure out where you actually want to apply your post-training. That means it's like inference has become front and center for a lot of what organizations do. And we've really leaned into this wave as well, starting off with Lorax, which is an open source framework for multi-LoRa serving, basically multiplexing a single GPU to support many different fine-tuned models, which I believe you'll hear just a little bit about later today as well. And then also proprietary advances like being able to train custom speculators for high throughput optimizations using features like TurboLoRa. I'm really proud of the team for the work that we've done on our inference stack, because ultimately our inference stack is what customers in production like Nubank, Marsh McLennan, Checker, Conversa, and a number of others rely on every single day for making sure their applications are up, running, and successful. And so when we first made the heavy investment in inference, I was convinced I was going to grow a lot more gray hairs because we're actually backing the production applications of a lot of these customers. But I've been really proud of both the resilience and reliability features that we've been able to put in here, on top of all of the kind of optimizations that we've done in terms of throughput as well as efficiency. So just to be able to wrap, I think our view on, as a company is we want to continue to be the fastest way to go from POC to production. That means being able to support you as you look to be able to do your model post-training, serve and deploy those models, and then make sure you have all of the operational capabilities you need from an observability standpoint to make sure you can view exactly where we are. We're really happy to be able to deploy inside of any of the major US cloud providers, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, and obviously have a very tight relationship with AWS and being able to both deploy inside of customers' AWS VPCs, as well as run workloads directly inside of that cloud environment anytime as needed. I want to make sure that I kind of reference the fact that any of the models that get deployed can be deployed either inside of our cloud or in yours. So thank you very much, I think, to AWS for also hosting us at this event and allowing us to be able to use the space, and for being fantastic partners in the journey so far. The other big partners that I want to make sure to be able to actually reference to are a number of our customers that are building production AI. You'll be hearing from some of our customers later today, but I also want to just indicate that there's a few others that have put great public talks about the types of systems that they've built. And so if you're ever curious and you haven't gotten your generative AI fix just yet, and you want to actually learn a little bit more about what it looks like to go from POC to production, each of these customers has been kind enough to provide public case studies and videos about how they actually built their internal agent systems. We look forward to more and more joining that list overall. And the very last thing I would like to do is, I mentioned it earlier, but thank you very much to AWS, our gracious partner and host. I'd love to give them a quick round of applause if that's okay. They not only have a beautiful space here in San Francisco that they've graciously allowed us to use, they also have the platform that we're able to go ahead and run on as underlying infrastructure, and a number of our customers run on as well. So really appreciate kind of that time. And with that, what I'm going to do is we're going to kind of conclude the overall keynote, and I'm very excited to be able to tell you a bit about what the agenda is going to look like for today. We're going to run all of our talks in here, and we have a number of we've curated, I think, a stellar list of the key people that are deploying generative AI applications in prod. So we're going to start off with a talk on creating deeper and safer human connections with generative AI from some of the core machine learning engineers at Tinder. I'm really excited to be able to hear from. Next up, we're going to have a part of the team actually here from DoorDash, who's going to be talking about turboscaling generative AI and doing personalization at scale, and the number of systems in production that they've actually been able to put in as well. They'll be coming from 11:30 to noon. Afterwards, we'll be hearing from Pinterest about productionizing prompts, how you actually created generative AI power users inside of your organization. And I think, across these three, I know someone was making a joke that we'll have everything from being able to find love to finding food and finding kind of the latest inspiration that we need for our next trip or event. And so hopefully it'll be a really good way to understand how generative AI is powering all of those. And then I'll try and have everyone take a 2-minute break if we can before our power-packed panel, where we're going to see and have speakers from Meta and the Llama team. So thank you very much for joining. Converse Now, the leading generative AI company as well, deploying these applications in production. AWS and NVIDIA, and we'll be able to moderate the panel as well as take some questions. If we make it through the agenda on time, which is our incentive, we will also have lunch and for everyone outside, an opportunity to network, speak with some of the folks that you've met here today, as well as a raffle. We'll have Meta here, so we've decided to raffle off Meta's Oculus VR headsets, as well as some of the Ray-Bans too. So please join us, put out a few tickets. Your odds aren't that bad, and so I do think it'd actually be great to make sure we get some really good winners up on stage later. And right before we want to kick off, I just want to say one final thank you to everyone who's attending, speaking, and kind of partnered with us across the event. I'm so happy to see everybody in this room here today, and again, everyone on the live stream. And I look forward to the rest of this summit. So thank you very much. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and welcome the team over from Tinder to start the very first talk on deeper and safer human connections.